Welcome to Chapter 3, Priorities. We're going to begin this chapter with an exercise. So first, go grab 3 pieces of loose paper. On the first piece of paper, write list number 1 at the top. Then I want you to write out the top 4 things that you spend the most time doing during the day. Now, this is outside of your main obligation or your main occupation. So this could be driving to work, it could be scrolling on social media, caring for kids, social engagements. So write those out and pause the video while you do this. On the second piece of paper, write list 2. And I want you to write out the 4 things, come hell or high water, that you routinely do every single day. Now, this is outside of your true obligation and outside of work. So this could be doing your morning yoga or having a cup of coffee or listening to a podcast or cooking dinner. So these are things that you generally do not negotiate out of your schedule. This, again, is list number 2. Pause the video while you do this. On the last piece of paper, write list 3, and I want you to write out your top 4 priorities in your life. Now, these are the top 4 things that you feel you must achieve in order to feel or be successful. So examples of this could be financial independence. It could be having or living a healthy lifestyle. It could be being a good parent. So write them out for list number 3. Pause the video while you do this. Now that you have all of these 3 lists complete, what I want you to do is take them and lay them all side by side in front of you. And I want you to look at them really closely. Do any of the items on the list match up? Now, if you're in total alignment with your priorities, these lists will match up. If not, you're going to have things on list 1 and list 2 that are not part of your list 3, which is your true priorities. Now, most people's lists do not match up. Why is that? Well, because we're usually so busy putting out fires in our life and dealing with other people's problems and dealing or attending to non-important, non-urgent things like checking email and scrolling social media and doing the busy work that occupies most of our time in our life. So how can you begin to intentionally create our life and intentionally put these priorities into our day? Well, I have a story for you about that. So let's just say that there's a professor that is standing in front of his classroom and he has 2 containers. And in the first container, he puts big rocks in here. So there's 4 big rocks. And he asks the students, is this container full? Yes, everyone's in agreement. Then he puts pebbles inside of the container and they nestle themselves around these rocks. Then he asked the students, is it now full? And they said, yep, absolutely. Then he takes sand and he dumps the sand in and it nestles inside of the rocks and the pebbles. Then he asks, okay, now is it full? And they're like, yes, now it's full. Sure enough, he takes water, pours the water over the sand, the rocks, and the pebbles and fills it up. And then he says, okay, now is it full? They're all in agreement. Yes, now the vessel is full. So in the second container, he pours the sand, the pebbles, and then the water. And he's like, all right, is this full? And they're like, no, you can absolutely fit those rocks in. He tries to fit them in and they don't fit. So what does all of this mean? So I want you to think about the sand as other people's problems. I want you to think about the pebbles that are all the things that are in crisis. Then I want you to think about the water as time-wasting activities. And then I also want you to think about the big rocks as your main priorities. So we're going to look at the professor's second example again. So when everything else is dumped inside of the cylinder or inside of the vessel, our priorities just don't fit. So what does this mean for you? Like, what does this mean for your health and your wealth and your well-being and your relationships if you don't put your priorities in here, which could be health and wealth and your relationships and all that other stuff? Your life is going to hurt. Your life is going to not be very exciting. Your life is going to be a little bit scary because it's going to feel like you're just spinning your wheels and not achieving those things that you ever want to achieve because you're putting everybody else's stuff in front of yours. So now let's go back to this first vessel where you put the rocks in first, your main priorities, and everything else then nestles in. If you look at this, it's really easy to assume that these big priorities, these big rocks that we have in our life, are going to take up all of our time. But that's actually not true. When you intentionally create a life that's fabulous, when you intentionally create a life that's exciting, what you're doing is you are intentionally putting your priorities first. And what happens is when you do that, you realize, and it's actually quite quickly that you realize that you still have time for all of those other things if you choose to put them in your life. So I want you to think about a farm. I want you to think about a seed that you want to, plant and cultivate. And what do you do when you plant a seed? Well, you get the soil ready and you plant the seed, you water the seed, you remove any weeds that might pop up, and you have faith in the growing process. You have faith that it's going to germinate and create a plant that hopefully you can harvest from in a couple of months. This is the same thing that happens with your life. The priorities that you wrote down on list 3 are the seeds that you want to plant. The key, now that you know all of this, is to marry your lists. So list number 3, marry that list into the other 2 lists and into the things that you do on a daily basis. And this is going to enrich your life and give you the results that you have been searching for, which is a really fulfilling, really satisfying, really exciting life. So, for example, let's just say that education is one of your main priorities. So, how could you integrate education, which is on list 3, into list 1 or 2? Let's just say that you have an hour commute to work every single day. Well, one of the things that you could do is listen to a book on audio while you're driving to work. So there you go. Maybe that takes up a large portion of your day. You can integrate that into it. And so you are putting education as part of your daily things. Maybe having a really strong partnership with your partner is really important to you. So one of the things that you can do, come hell or high water, this would be on list number 2, is that every day you put your phone away and you connect with your partner. You have dinner without your phone. You listen to them, you talk with them, you learn communication skills for having really healthy communications. Maybe one of the things that you have on your priority list is to have a really good connection with your family and with your children. And so again, one of the things that you can do come hell or high water is put your phone away and have game night with them or connect with them where they're at on their level. You can be very intentional. You could have game night. You could play video games with them. I don't know, but figure out a way. Be creative when you're thinking about how you can take what's on your priorities list and marry it into what you do every single day. Now, one of the things that I want you to keep in mind is this is an ongoing practice, and it truly is a new way of being. And also, your priorities are going to change based on the phase of life that you're in. So my priorities, now that I'm an empty nester, look very different than what they did when I was actually raising my babies. So what I want you to do, now that you've looked at your current list of your life and you've explored ways that you can integrate your priorities into list number 1 and list number 2, I want you to go ahead and do this exercise again. So get out 3 fresh pieces of paper and create a list of list number 1, what do you want to do each day? List number 2 is what must you do every day. This is like your come hell or high water. I will do this every single day. And number 3, reevaluate your priorities. What are my priorities now that I am in this phase of my life? What is important? Is it travel? Is it, I mean, if you have 5 kids or 6 kids or 4 kids or even 1 kid, is travel a priority right now, or is raising your babies a priority? Maybe a priority is losing weight and being healthy. Again, look at what your priorities are at this phase in your life right now and marry those into your lists for list number 1 and list number 2. As you work this exercise again, be very intentional and try to get excited about what this means for you. Because what this means for you is that you can truly start to intentionally co-create your life, which is so exciting. So when you intentionally become aligned with these actions, you're soon going to see and realize that you have a life that you are wildly obsessed with. Now remember, it only takes a small 1-degree shift to make magic happen and create a life that you're excited about.